On the morning of September 23rd, 1839, an experienced sailor named Captain Brighton stood on the deck of his ship, which was traveling through the Drake Passage, which is located right along the northern coast of Antarctica. Because they were professional whalers, and they had heard there was this massive population of whales in the Drake Passage, Captain Brighton and his crew had not seen a single whale. And on top of that, just the previous night, the ocean around the ship had literally frozen, basically anchoring the ship in place. But fortunately, also the previous night, this massive storm rolled in. The severity of the storm was actually a good thing because it broke up the ice around the ship and allowed Captain Brighton to sail away. He suddenly noticed something over the horizon. It was another ship, which was really surprising. Nobody really comes out here. And so his instincts were, okay, this has got to be a rival whale ship. He realized it was not a whale ship. It was actually a schooner, which is a ship designed for traveling. He saw it was in pretty rough shape. I mean, the hull and the sails were very tattered. There was something off about the ship. They actually did have, at least at that moment, quite a bit of supplies, at least some to spare. And so he called out to his men to ready a dinghy and get some supplies because they were gonna go over to this schooner. Captain Brighton, along with 4 other men, hopped in the dinghy and they began paddling over to the schooner. And as they got closer, the waves were pretty bad. And so they're kind of jostling around. Periodically, as they got closer, they'd be able to look into the portholes, which are like windows on the side of the schooner. And Captain Brighton could clearly see there were people inside of the schooner. They got to the side of the schooner and they just climbed up the ladder and boarded the ship. Nobody was out on deck. And so Captain Brighton and his men walked across the deck to this door that led into the ship. And so Captain Brighton, he gets to the door, he knocks and calls out, but there's no answer. And so Captain Brighton eventually just opens up this door, and sure enough, he looks into this dark space, and it's the captain's quarters. And there's a desk towards the back of this room, and there's a man sitting at the desk with his back to them. But the man doesn't say or do anything. And so slowly, Captain Brighton began walking across the room, and then finally, he was right behind the man, and he actually looked down and read what the man had been writing. This is what it said. Trapped by icebergs. Despite all efforts, the fire went out last night. No hope remains. What was the most unsettling part was actually what was written right above that journal entry. The date, January 17th, 1823, 16 years before. That captain and his entire crew were all dead. They got trapped in the ice just like Captain Brighton had, but it didn't break up. They were stranded and they all froze to death. And because it was so cold out in that part of the world, all their bodies were basically preserved in their final moments. And then down below, when Captain Brighton and his men went to go look, they found people playing cards who had literally frozen to death while playing cards. They found a woman lying in her bed with her dog. That's how they froze to death. They found people in the dining hall and they died right where they were sitting. It was like all these people had been frozen in time for nearly 2 decades, and basically nobody had found them until Captain Brighton.